Okay, thank you very much. Hi, my name is Geraint Bungay. Everybody calls me G. I am the co-founder of Boss Bunny Games. We're based here in the UAE. We have offices currently in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. We're looking to move into new offices in Abu Dhabi on Yas Island later on this year, hopefully. So we're essentially a game developer and publisher here. We are moving a lot more onto the publishing side of things this year as well. So we're looking for software and games to publish in the region. But essentially, we've been developing for the last 2 years. We're just over 2 years old now. Games for mobile. We're focused on mobile right now, possibly looking at other platforms as we move forward into 2023, maybe 24. But right now, we're 100% focused on mobile games. We have a team here in the UAE of between 11 and 13 people. Earlier last year, we were approached and a majority takeover of Boss Bunny by our partners in the United States called Waysun. And essentially, what we have now is access to a very large development studio in the US, based in Florida and elsewhere, and that we work with them on developing our games now as well. And they are also helping us on the publishing side of things. We are currently recruiting heavily for new staff. So if anybody out there is looking for a role, especially in marketing, monetization, we're also looking for a head of operations to work very closely with our CEO and my co-founder. So really the idea today is to talk a bit about IP, working with intellectual property. We've been doing a lot of work on that in recent years, and I'll go through some of the projects we've been working on. I've been working with IP now for many, many years. I originally made a game with Manchester United, the football team, the UK-based Premier League team. I made their first, and I still believe only ever mobile game with them. And that brought a lot of lessons to me around working with IP, especially working with personalities, image rights, agents, which was an interesting thing as well. For example, making that game, the game wasn't photorealistic; it was animation, a football skills game, and to get some of the characters through the sign off by agents and players took a lot of work. And that was my introduction to the good side of working with IP in terms of access to brand, numbers, and market. But also, not I wouldn't call it a bad side, but a lot of the things that you need to take in consideration with working with IP. So the first thing really is about understanding what the IP rights holder wants from it. So what does the brand want from it? What does maybe the personality themselves? What do they want to get? What do they want to get from it? Especially when it comes to making a game, as with these guys as well, you are usually at least paying to make that game. You're also sometimes additionally purchasing the rights to use that IP. The constitution of the deal can vary in terms of, am I just paying for the IP and making whatever I want, or am I basically working with the IP rights holder, not paying for the IP, but is there some kind of revenue share involved or anything else? Obviously, for commercial confidentialities, I won't be going through the details of any deals we have, but just understand that working with an IP rights holder in terms of the deal and the game, there are many formulations that you can come up with. It isn't a one size fits all. It isn't a just we pay for it, we develop the game we want. Especially when IP rights holder have a brand that they wish to protect. Some of these guys could have spent years, decades, especially if they're organizations, building a brand, and they're very rightly so, protective of that brand. They want to make sure that anything that you do isn't going to negatively affect the brand. And of course, what they're looking for is positive reinforcement of that brand. And sometimes they're looking for revenue from the game as well. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's just a promotional thing. Again, it differs. Obviously, you as a developer, you either want to get paid to make the game or you want to generate revenue from it. You're not doing this for nothing. Whereas understand the motivations of the IP, the rights holder, may be different. But most importantly, they're normally looking to make sure that you are not going to damage their brand in any way. So you will have to, before you work with these people, you're going to need to do quite a considerable piece of work, not just selling yourself and your studio or you as a developer, but also selling them on the idea of the game. What is the game about? How does it fit into what they do? Does it fit into what they do? Is it a complete change to how you'd expect to see them? So here's an example. So Boss Money, we soft launched last year. We're still going through the soft launch process of a game with CZN Chef Burak. Very, very famous personality. I believe he is the largest, has the largest fan base on TikTok in the world, over 40 million plus viewers. So when we came to work with those guys, we spent a lot of time initially looking at what the game was about. And the approach from them came from, well, essentially, we had an approach from them directly, fun enough through LinkedIn. A lot of stuff happens on LinkedIn that people don't realize. Excuse me. These guys approached me directly and said, we'd like to talk about making a game. So then that's only the start of the process. Then you're saying, okay, what kind of game? What are the territories where you're looking to promote this game? So you'll see if you download it, please do. It's available on Google and Apple and Huawei. It's available in all the stores. You'll see with the Chef Burak game, you'll find it under CZN Burak on the stores. You'll see with that game there, it's really it's got a lot to do with action and fighting. It's not a traditional cooking game because that isn't what they were looking for. They wanted to promote. So with Chef Burak, they have a whole range of action figures now. So we incorporated all of those action figures into the game, all of the different personalities and characters of Chef Burak. So to understand, basically, it isn't just a straightforward cooking game. You need to understand that what they wanted to do was to promote something within the game in terms of this new burger brand that they were coming out with and how they wanted to work with that and work that into the game. So often you'll find with games based around IP, they tend to be a little bit divorced, not from what the person does day to day, but it's about working into the game elements of what that is about, and sometimes promoting something new that these companies or this personality wants to actually do. So that's something you really need to consider. You need to consider what they want. What does the IP owner, what does the rights owner want from this? Now, the next thing you need to do is once you've agreed, once you've done the proposal, and again, this can take a long time. You can go through many iterations of what the game will look like, many mini game briefs that you have to go through before you agree. What you need then is you have to get buy-in. I suggest that everything is done with some kind of signature, some kind of sign-off, because often some of these games will take a while to build, and during that period, people move around in companies, and sometimes someone will be agreed, and then maybe somebody will come to you a few months later and say, "Hey, we didn't agree this." And you need to make sure, especially in the development process. I'm sure many of you out there will know this. Is very easy to say, "Oh, can you just change this?" I often say. There are four words that developers really hate. Oh, can you just? So, oh, can you just change this? Oh, can you just make it this? Oh, can you just make it blue? And we all know as developers, as publishers and everything else, it's not that easy to do. So it's essential when you're going through this, you get an approval process. Now, one of the main areas you need to get approval is, and you need to be so careful of, is the characterization of maybe the star or the IP. So in the case of Chef Burak, in the case of Man United football players or other games that we're developing at the moment, and I'll come on to talk about a major game that we're launching later on this year based around one of the biggest animation IP in the Middle East and globally, is you need to make sure that you get agreement on what this character looks like, because ultimately the game is based around this character. That's where the recognizable factor comes in, especially from the Stars fans, their TikTok followers, their YouTube followers, wherever these guys are coming from. So you need to make sure at all points you've got continual feedback from the rights holders team, and especially on the characterization, to make sure you've got that signed off, because that's normally the first thing you work on. You'll work on, this is the character, this is how the character will look in the game, or characters will look in the game. So essential that you get that right, and that's a very hard piece. Don't underestimate how easy or how quickly that will take. It won't. It will take time, and just be aware of those 4 words, "Oh, can you just," during the process of the period there. Uh, the other thing that's important about when developing the game, before developing the game, is to get the IP rights holder to understand the need to promote, the need for them to sell their game. If you're working with somebody, ordinarily you'll work with somebody because you believe they have a brand, a reach, a global reach, an audience, whatever that audience is in terms of the demographic makeup. Uh, you believe that they have that and they have access to this. Why wouldn't you? That's what these people are coming to you for. This is what it's about. But you really have to work with them, work with their team to make them to understand they have to promote the game as well. They have to promote the game directly to their users, their followers, their fans, wherever they can be found, wherever they normally talk to them. It's essential that you have that understanding of what's needed. And it's not just about once we launch the game and there's an initial bang of marketing and everybody goes from there. It's understanding that these games are normally, they take time. You hope to get an immediate reaction from fans, but if you're doing a soft launch and then an update and then a full launch, we all know this doesn't happen in a week or a month. So it's understanding and working in partnership with the rights holders to say, okay, guys, this is the marketing that we need to do. This is what we expect from you. This is what we're looking for you to promote it. You will find, and it's been our experience at Boss Bunny, that all of our partners we've worked with and are currently working with around games built on IP, they are more than happy to do this. But be honest with them, tell them what you need, and tell them the timescale that they're working from. Because a lot of these people will have many, many things going on in terms of videos they're making, appearances, chat shows, anything they're doing, their own launches, their own plans. So you need to make sure and be honest and straight with them. This is what we need from you, and establish that. And again, get it written down, agree it. So when people come along, they say, "Oh yes, we understand that we were going to do this on this date, on this date." Again, we all know when you're releasing games, sometimes dates move and dates shift. This is the essentially, this is the life of game development. Not everything can be planned down to the last minute or even the last week. So again, make sure that they understand this too. A lot of the people that are coming to you looking to make games from IP won't necessarily understand what it takes to make a game. They will play games. Most of them will be gamers. Most of them will be playing games the majority of their life. Especially if anybody's as old as me, you would have been playing games for the last 40 plus years. So they know games, they understand games. But again, we all know in the games industry that people think what you do all day is play games. And you can make a game in a week, you can make a game in a day. We all know that isn't true. Getting the game right and developing that game to a level of quality that somebody with an expensively established and heartfelt intellectual property, getting it to that quality is not easy to do, and it's not quick. So again, you need to make them understand that when you do the game, understand the timescales. Provide them with a Gantt, with a timescale chart. Provide them with key deliverables. And during that time, you're looking to get the feedback, continual feedback in a loop, all the time. So the earliest you can get to them with something is say, hey, we're going to show you this. We'll show you a playable demo at this stage and that stage. Again, be very clear with them that playable demos aren't the full game, especially in the early stages of development, because in many businesses and especially in games, people's first impression is the one they go with. So be very clear when you do this, these are the initial builds. These aren't the final builds. This is what we're, excuse the pun, building up to. But keep that going at all times. Keep communicating with the IP rights holder. Make them understand it is an iterative process. You need their feedback all the time. Again, be very clear. Don't expect to sign off a game design document and then we'll come back to you in 8 months' time with a game. We need your feedback all the time. And also, don't fool yourself into thinking you can do that, especially with IP, because they need to check all the time. And also, IP isn't static; it moves all the time. People's brands move all the time. The messages they're trying to convey move all of the time as well. So you need to keep in contact with these people. You need to make sure that they're feeding back. Of course, you also need There's a lot of needs in this, but it's important that you also need to make clear, as we're saying, that there are some set deliverables, there are some lock dates. So you can't say, okay, we'll come back to us in a week when you know what you want, or okay, in a month there's something else. We need to lock things in if we want to achieve any kind of sensible release date, and also if we want to stick to any kind of plan as close as we possibly can, because of these changing needs of the IP rights holder set against your need and our need as a games developer to deliver what people are looking at. So the next thing to make understand or to consider is the updates. Again, so you've worked with an IP rights holder maybe for, let's say you've worked with an IP rights holder for a year to deliver a game. You've gone through all the process, you've spoke to them and everything else. Then need to understand that if this is a game and it's success, you're going to need to follow it up very quickly with updates. So start to establish what they are. Talk to them about what it's about as well. But okay, so that's just a little bit about in terms of what's needed when you're working with IP. I also want to just mention here. So I mentioned earlier an animation that we're working with. So this is a game that will be released later on this year. We've been working with this team for over a year right now, and it's the team from Freege, FREEJ. Freege is a massively popular and very successful animation cartoon here, and based around essentially four women and their life in the UAE. It's a comedy type thing. It's actually very funny indeed. But what we needed to understand from the beginning, there, we're dealing with characters that have been in people's lives for over a decade. These are what people have been. Actually, I don't think that. It's 7 or 8, 9 years, if I remember correctly. But essentially, these are characters that people have grown up with through their childhood, and now their children watch these kinds of these cartoons as well. And so, understanding the responsibility you have to deliver a game that doesn't in any way detract from what these people are doing, from what these people have seen from these characters, is so important. And with Freege especially, we're dealing with animation, and so we've been able to take those characters and transpose them relatively easy into a game, or so you would think. Now, the form factors of the phone and the genre of the game may need that you need to subtly adjust those characters, but you need to be incredibly careful working with the IP rights holders. Again, it's a holding hand, step-by-step process, and especially with the amazing guys we've been working with from Lamtara Studios, who are the creators of Freege. We've worked very, very closely with them to make sure that we're getting the characters are right, to make sure the actions of the characters are right, and also the expectations and behaviors of the players who are currently viewers fit in with what they expect as well from the players. So what I've basically been saying over the last 20 minutes or so is the most important thing around IP is, first of all, understanding what the IP rights holder wants from it. What do they expect to get from it? And also what kind of deal are they looking for? Is it just a promotional game? Is it they're looking to make revenue? We've recently made an amazing game with the fantastic company DP World, who are one of the world's largest logistics transporters, incredibly huge. And we've made a game from them around logistics and transportation and shipping, a hugely complex game. Now, the game is essentially free to play, and there are no elements in the game that require purchase. And so it was a very different game in terms of the game that we developed for them. But in terms of the understanding of that business and how the business works and what they expect from their brand. Now, for example, I'm not betraying any secrets here. We built we thought we were getting somewhere with the game, and we had we forgot at one point we had some of the transport containers were in the wrong color. So we had to change those because you're dealing with somebody's brand. You're dealing with something that is, in some cases, is worth literally billions of dollars. So you have to be careful. So understand what the IP rights holders want, and then it's that continual communication, showing them, updating, making sure you've got it right, getting sign off, moving forward. The third part is understanding with them what you need to promote the game, what support you're expecting from them when it comes to promoting the game. Absolutely essential. They are the people who have direct access to their fans. So those are the guys that know how to reach them, and they know where they are and when they are. Now you may need to support them. You may need to give them well, you will need to give them assets, videos, game clips, characters, anything, images, everything. But make them understand that without them, without their promotion, it can be very, very hard to make the game the success that you want it to be. So then the fourth one is follow-up. Then during the update stage, make sure you're working with them, make sure you're showing them what you're looking to do, and very importantly, make sure that they understand the metrics of the game, where it's working, where it isn't working, where we may need more support, excuse me, where we may need to develop new characters. So IP, in a nutshell, not easy. It's not easy to do. It takes a lot of understanding. It takes a lot of patience from both sides in terms of what's required. But if you get these right, if you get these 4 pillars correct, there's no reason why you shouldn't make a game that can be successful and that the IP rights holders can be proud of. So that's it really from me. I mean, I could go on honestly for hours about IP, making games of IP, getting those contracts, working with the lawyers, which is also interesting in many respects, working on the business model, the revenue shares, and all these kind of things. But I think for now that'll do. I'm not too sure. I think we may have a Q&A session coming up.
Okay, well, thank you for amazing insights. First of all, it's
okay.
Really interesting to hear about these things. Okay, one question from me actually. What are the main reasons for famous people to have a game? New revenue line, more visibility, or fame?
Yeah, I thought that's a really interesting question. That's why I was talking about understanding what they want from it. Some will want it just to increase, and I'm talking generally now. I'm not going to talk about our IP partners, but I'm talking in generalization. Some will want a game just to further increase their reach and their fame. They may not understand why they want a game. They just know. And again, in the industry, we know people want a game. And then you're saying, why? I don't know. I want a game. Oh, everybody's got a game. You know, Kim Kardashian's got a game. This person's got a game. This person's got a game. And so you need to understand what they want. So some people want it just for fame. Some people will want it purely as a revenue generator. Some will have little or nothing to do with it. I mean, you can say some of the, maybe there are games out there where all it is linked to an IP rights holder's name. And they just use it as money generation, as a cash generator. But those who really want to do it will be invested in it. They will spend time working with you. And then it's a combination of they want to increase and spread their brand. A lot of the serious business side is, of course, they want to generate revenue. As I mentioned, we did a game for DP World, the logistics company and shipping company, and they wanted it to teach people. They wanted to use it to teach people about logistics and about transportation and the quite complex details behind it, but in a fun and easy to understand way. So I don't think there's any one reason. There are many reasons that people want to do this, but you have to understand them at the beginning because they will form very much how you design the game and how the game plays.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Alper Tunga, Artec Games. Doesn't using a famous person in the game restrict the user base?
It can do. Okay, that's again that's such an insightful question, to be honest. It can do. You can say, well, it's only going to appeal to this person's fan base. Now, if that person's fan base is big enough, if you're getting into the hundreds of millions, the hundreds of millions and so on, you can ask yourself, is that an issue or not? If you can make a game that appeals to those fan base and they understand the link to the IP rights holder, and the IP rights holder is prepared to promote it to them. Some of the things I mentioned earlier. But I think it can. But again, this is why understanding who you're working with. We get approached, Boss Bunny have been approached by quite a few people on IP rights holders because, you could say we're a specialist in it. It's not something we develop games, we publish games. But in the region, we've been working with IP rights holders. And so we get approached by quite a few people. And I won't say who, of course, but we've turned down several opportunities purely because we couldn't see a need for a game. But then also we looked at the audiences of that person or of that business, and we just said it's not large enough. and you want a game that's so specifically centered around your IP that we don't believe that we can reach enough people to make the game financially worthwhile for us, especially if we're paying for the game to be made, or we don't feel that it ultimately will be successful enough. So I think that's a very, very good question. You need to do the research beforehand. You need to check, can we make this game larger than just the IP rights holders? But understand you are making it for that person. And so ultimately, the initial fans of that game, the initial players of that game, the people that download, play, and possibly pay for that game are going to be fans of that person. So it's an incredibly insightful question. And for us, it's about doing the research beforehand.
Okay, I will add a small follow-up question based on this. What's the soft launch process, or is there any what's the
Yeah, sure.
testing phase of the game?
Yeah, I mean it's quite traditional soft launch. We're looking at an initial small launch, normally geographically tied to an area, small marketing budget, test, and then also some test groups. We try to get people in test groups initially, obviously, of course, before we launch the game. And you're asking questions like, does this fit with that? Does this fit with a brand? Does it fit with this person, this star, whoever you're working with? Does it fit with them? What are you looking for from the game? And then, for example, with CZN Burak, we then during the initial soft launch period, which is, we're now moving into full launch right now, we developed another 100 levels for the game based on feedback that we were getting, and also based on the fact that we believe the game is going to be successful enough that people will want to see more. So soft launch is ultimately about establishing what people want from the game, seeing what's wrong with the game. And it's incredibly important that developers understand that you will never make the perfect game. It doesn't exist. So you have to listen to your players when you're doing the soft launch. So that's essentially the soft launch for us, establishing what it's about, making sure it's successful, fixing anything that needs to be fixed, and then planning for the future. Do we need to start developing games? Because a lot of games right now require in-life support. Back in the day, and I'm old, I've been at this for over 25 years, you used to make games and they were called fire and forget games. You launched a game, you forgot it, you on to the next one. Games nowadays require in-life continual support. So that soft launch should help inform you what you need to do.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, I don't see any other questions. This was really insightful. Congrats for Chef Burak. His user base is growing rapidly. I hope the game will follow. Thank you so much.
No problem. I've really enjoyed it. My contact details are here. I've had several requests for connections as we've been speaking. So happy to talk to anybody. LinkedIn is my kind of TikTok, if you will, or my Instagram. So if you ever want to contact me, please drop me a line. I really enjoyed it. Hope to do something again.
Okay. Thank you so much. Take care.
Cheers, my friend. Bye-bye.